Hey, what's going on, everybody? On tonight's show, I got a very special guest, Sam Laskey, one of the writers of the upcoming horror sci-fi film ICK, which hits theaters in New York and LA on July 24th, and then hits theaters everywhere through Fathom Events starting July 27th. Get your tickets now and enjoy this interview. Stay tuned. For those of y'all who have not seen the trailer for this one yet, we have one of the writers from the upcoming sci-fi horror film ICK, which opens in theaters for Fathom Events July 27th. You can go get tickets for this right now. Joining me, I have one of the writers, Sam Laskey. Sam, thank you so much for joining us today to talk a little bit about the movie. How's things going for you?
I'm doing great, and I just want to say if you live in New York or LA on the 24th of July, you can go see it in theaters.
Now, how is it leading up? Because you guys are only a few weeks away from release at this point, and honestly, the reaction that I've been seeing online to just the trailer has truly been like pretty ecstatic there. So, how are you guys feeling right now in the lead up to the big release?
It's really been amazing because we played at TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. That was our big premiere last September. We played a fantastic fest in Austin, and
Yeah.
now to actually have it in theaters for the rest of the country to see is amazing. I could not be more excited.
The timing of it works out so well too, because I'd have to imagine with a late July release like that, this is also going to aim to be like one of the bigger like fall Halloween season kind of like rentals or purchases that folks are going to be picking up for something fun and new to check
I
out. So
I really hope that people are going to check out this movie with their family over Halloween, over Thanksgiving. If you're a horror fan and maybe you're going to spend Thanksgiving with your nieces and nephews who are a little bit younger, by all means, this is a PG-13 movie. It's totally appropriate for them. This is the fall movie for you to watch with your family.
is this one, because like this year seemingly has been right with horror films that are like great introduction to horror for that younger crowd. You know, we've had like Clown in the Cornfield, we got a new Final Destination film. Like there's so much stuff that's been coming out that's worked as a really great introduction to the younger horror crowd. And like hearing what you're saying about it, it really seems and feels like this is kind of in that same realm. Would you say this really attacks like that young adult crowd, hitting all those right like spaces for them?
We absolutely intended this from the very beginning to be the kind of movie that if you're a horror fan, and I know the audience for this show is horror fans, the sort of movie that you saw when you were 9, 10, 11 years old and introduced you to the genre.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to create here.
For those of y'all who haven't seen the trailer for this one yet, which we are going to play clips of this here throughout the interview as well too, high school football prospect turned science teacher Hank's life changes when he reconnects with his former love and suspects one of his students is his daughter, all while facing an alien threat known as the Ick in their
Yeah.
town. Now, you mentioned something just now about how like you're talking about that first horror film you see like when you're around 9 or 10, and that's your introduction to it. And I know that the director Joseph Kahn had mentioned like he's taken influences from like Spielberg films like Jurassic Park and Jaws, but it was hard for me not to watch that trailer and feel kind of what you're saying about films like The Faculty or like the 80s version of The
Mhm.
Blob or even Slither. And so that makes me curious, what was that film for you? What was like the one that kind of got you into that horror realm?
Oh, well, especially since 28 years later just came out.
Whew.
28 days later was that movie for me.
Yeah.
What year was that? 2001,
Oh,
2002,
it
when I
was
was
oh
11 or
02.
12.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That movie came out. I saw a review that was like, yes, it's a zombie movie, but it's,
Deep.
really, really good. And
Yeah.
I watched it, and that was my introduction to horror movies. That turned me on to George Romero,
Yeah.
which obviously led me to writing Ick
Hmm.
eventually.
So there's a
um,
direct Romero influence there on parts of what we're going to see in this then.
I mean, uh, Dawn of the Dead is one of my top five movies of all time, and
Classic.
the social satire of Romero is everywhere in Ick. That is
Yeah.
that was my main goal when writing Ick, was I wanted to make a Romero movie. You mentioned the Chuck Russell's The Blob,
Yep.
obviously is a masterpiece. Uh, Larry Cohen's The Stuff. These
Oh,
are the
yeah.
movies that I watched when I was 12, 13, 14 years old and
Hmm.
loved. And now, yeah, it's amazing to get to put all of that influence into Ick, um, and do it in a way that, again, PG-13. If you're expecting Terrifier or Terrifier 3, this is not that. This
No.
is a movie where you can try to introduce your younger family members to horror, and start them on that path that we all went on when we were 10 years old.
Yeah. And
But
you
yeah,
you talk.
Romero is the main one for me. Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead. I made my mother go see Land of the Dead with me in theaters.
Oh, no. I'm thinking about the scene when they attack the green and folks are just getting ripped up too. She
The
must have been
belly
like,
button ring get ripped out.
yes. Woo! Oh my Lord. She had to not be happy about that, I have to guess now.
uh, I gotta give my mother credit. She loved it. It was not like going to see whatever the second Matrix movie was called with my dad that I forced him to go see. He was just
Oh.
like, "What the hell is this nonsense?" Uh,
Like, nope, nope, nope.
no,
That's too far. Uh-uh.
my mother. The first time I watched Night of the Living Dead, when I
Mm.
was probably this was immediately after 28 Days Later came out, and I rented it on video,
Caught the
and
bug
then
from it. Yeah.
I knew that Night of the Living Dead was an influence on that movie, so I rented
Hmm.
Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
And my mom was using some kind of like herbal face mask at the time, and at
Oh,
like 11 o'clock at night, she comes into my room
done.
pitch black with green face mask all over, and is like, ah.
No, I'm good. We're done, Mom. Don't come back in my room. We're finished with that. Oh my Lord. And it's crazy you talk about like the Romero like social commentary. One of the things that he is, like you said, he's just known for adding such great stuff in his films here. But I'd be amiss to not mention the commentary that's already seemingly in y'all's film as well too, because
Yeah,
again, like we're flashing back to the early 2000s, a time that you and I in our age group both know extremely well. And Brandon Routh, who plays Hank, he's playing the star quarterback. He's got the girl. It's the big game. He's breaking his ankle at that point, which we are used to seeing that in so many films that do the whole like this person used to be something, but it felt so different that we're at this point in time to where now we're not going back to the 80s and the 70s or the 60s or
yeah.
anything, and these stories are firmly taking place like in the late 90s and 2000s. And you growing up in that period, was that just important to you to make sure to like represent that culture and that age that we lived in, which to me is still so golden. It's still, I know everybody says that about their time frame, but it's such a golden time frame. Was that super important to see reflected in this story for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I it really was like my peak years that I put into the script. But I want to go back, as you mentioned the Romero commentary. uh, I want to talk about like how Joseph Kahn, the director of the film, initially, because this was his concept,
Yeah.
he initially pitched it to me. um he wanted to do a movie where, there's this alien entity that's invading a small town. And I was like, well, I love Chuck Russell's Blob. I know exactly how this goes. A meteor crashes, somebody touches it, it infects somebody, and then it takes over the town. He was like, no, it just exists for 20 years and nobody does anything about it.
Hmm. Okay.
And I think that's really critical to thinking about that period of time where we grew up, of like all these problems in our society that we just chose to ignore at that time, that are maybe boiling over and affecting us today. Um, and
Yeah.
when he said that, I was like, well, nobody's just gonna not deal with a problem that's affecting society in big ways.
Look where we are.
And I wrote the script in 2018, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Which, for anybody out there who's watching this, who's a screenwriter or wants to be a screenwriter, that's how freaking long it takes. I wrote the script 7 years ago. And I was like, people are being killed by the ick. Nobody's the scientist from the government is telling people they need to stay inside and uh, 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 and not ignore the problem. And if you watch the trailer, they're just like, no, we want to go on with our lives.
We're living it.
And when I wrote those scenes, I was like, Joseph, this is ridiculous. I've gone too far. We got to change it. And he was like, no, this is how people react to bad situations. And then COVID happened, and I was like, God damn it.
He's right.
I was way too predictive.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear that, because like compared to something like Jaws, I think a lot of us are used to seeing in films, it's one character, the mayor of the town. We're still doing this. We're still going on. So it is interesting to see life reflected with the townspeople just going on with their lives. No, doesn't matter. Folks are dying. We still want all of our vices. We still want access to all of these things there. I think that's crazy to see that. And like you said, you write the script and only a couple of years later, madness ensues at that point.
Right.
Insane.
And I was writing it, but I don't know the political valence of your audience, but I was writing about climate change, about Trumpism, of like these things that are happening in our society that we just don't want to acknowledge are destroying us.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just became way, way, way too real. I think the movie maybe only got made because of COVID, demonstrating to producers that this is actually how people would respond to a crisis.
We'd like to think that we could do better. And like every single time, we tee up another situation, as terrible as it is, and we can act better. But in real life, that's kind of like, unfortunately, the joy or the escape of a horror film, because eventually, I guess, you can see that folks will do the right thing, or they'll have the right thought about it. And it feels like we're waiting so often with so many of these scenarios in real life for folks just to wake up, and hasn't really happened, unfortunately.
So unfortunately, there's not a lot of escapism in this movie.
Fair.
Don't let that discourage you from going to see it, because I own a percentage of this movie. So every ticket sold goes into I have a 2-year-old.
Let's go.
I need you to go see it.
Kids are not cheap, folks. Come on.
There's a reality here that's not pure escapism. I think we tapped into something genuine.
And when it came to the script writing process, because you said that you said Joseph Kahn obviously came up with the story, and you're writing the script for that. Was there a lot of collaboration really once things got going after that point, or was it really just kind of tossed off into your hands there, and you're basically going to be the one responsible for hitting all those specific points here in that script?
So the way Joseph and I worked was he had about 50% of the script.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 50% of the outline or treatment already conceived. He knew what 50% of the story was. And then I took that, added my 50%, and then wrote it. And he basically let me just go off and conceive whatever I wanted. I created characters and scenarios that he didn't come up with, and he gave me a tremendous amount of freedom and kept a lot of the stuff that I came up with. So I have a lot of appreciation for Joseph and our working process.
With Joseph being like such a prolific music video director, for those y'all that don't know, Joseph Kahn has directed some of the most memorable music videos of all time. He's worked with artists like DMX and the Backstreet Boys and countless others here for that. Was that a direct influence on the music playing such a big part in this, or again kind of like the 2000 vibes that you wrote into it to reflect your own life experience there? Was that something that you also brought in, adding like, because it's a
I
great soundtrack?
and you, having not seen the movie, you have no idea how fucking good the soundtrack actually is with the needle
Yes.
drops.
Oh.
I It was definitely an influence on the way I wrote the script, because normally they say don't write music into a screenplay because that's something that people have to
Go and
purchase.
clear, and yeah.
Yeah, clear the rights and everything. But I knew with Joseph and his connections that I could start writing some stuff into the script. The biggest thing that I did was, and this is in the trailer, and I'm really proud of this. The main character in the early 2000s has a like 10 song MP3 player,
Yep. Which is so
which is
accurate.
something that my parents bought me when I was that age. And they were like, it's just as good as an iPod. No, it's fucking not.
No. No, no, no. What was
But
the
you could load it up with your 10 favorite songs. And so I had the 10 songs that were on that MP3 player. They're not the 10 songs that ended up in the movie,
Okay.
but I did write them into the script.
Can you give us one of the
And
songs?
I'm not going to give you one of the songs that's in the movie.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a song that didn't make it into the movie.
Fair, fair. I'll take that.
Okay. I had originally used Nickelback's How You Remind Me as a motif throughout the script. And I had written it into the script as Hank, the main character, presses play on his MP3 player, and Nickelback's How You Remind Me plays. And in the description in the script, I said, because fuck you, that's why.
Yeah. And I mean, based off just what we see from Hank alone in the trailer, he absolutely comes off as the kind of person who was back in the early 2000s saying, you just don't get it if you don't like Nickelback. Like, come on, guys. Like,
Right.
they're the best. They're the best.
Uh,
That's gold.
I wrote Creed in there. I wrote Nickelback in there. And there's some stuff I wrote in there that did make it in that I don't want to spoil, because
Fair.
it's quite beautiful. You know what? I'm going to spoil it a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
there's a moment where Hey There Delilah plays,
Mm.
where I'm just like, this is my childhood. This is
Yeah.
wonderful.
See, and it's so insane because I feel that you guys are very much like going to connect with, like, again, our generation. We have that set of us who grew up on these bands like the Plain White Tees, like Dashboard Confessional, like Secondhand
Oh yeah.
Serenade. And like they literally were the soundtrack of our lives, to where, again, like you mentioned, Hey There Delilah, but I think anybody who hears you say that can think, 15, 20 years ago, one moment in their life where Hey There Delilah was very, very prominent to them. So it's just crazy, the connection that the music that like influenced you while you're writing and ultimately is going to end up in the film. The synergy there with that is just so perfect for a film like this, it seems. You
If
guys,
yeah, if you
excellent.
are between the ages of 30 and 40, there was a moment where Hey There Delilah hit you so hard, and we tried to recreate that in the
Oh,
movie.
love it. Do you still get to play as much of a hands-on role in the process once filming gets started? Because you always hear those stories that the moment that the cameras go up at that point, the writers are very much taking like a step back and it's all falling in the hands of the director. Were you getting to see the dailies? Were you being able to make updates consistently during the film for stuff that maybe you thought wasn't playing too well? Like, how did your role end up evolving once shooting kind of got started?
So I was invited to be a part of the shooting process and to be on set, but I my foster daughter was about 6 months old at the time, and it just was not practical for me to be there.
That's the bigger job.
So
That's the
right,
bigger job.
right. I could not go to Texas for a month to be on set. Um, and Dan Kuntz, one of the other writers, fantastic guy, great writer, took over the process and helped deliver the final product. Joseph is extremely collaborative and wants writers involved. He wants you to have your input. He invited me to be there. I just, for personal reasons, couldn't be there.
Fair. Absolutely fair there. And again, that you took the tougher job on, so very clearly you had your work still cut out for you one way or the
I
other there.
right. Try it was either spend a month in like 100-degree Houston weather, or spend a month being a stay-at-home dad with a 6-month old. I'm not sure which one was harder. Probably the 6-month old.
Yeah, I go with that. I go with that too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you have given us so much great information here on the film. So I got to ask, because we always try to ask something fun here when we get to the end of these things here. So let's say you get the chance to produce a sequel to Ick, whether or not, that's actually in the cards or not. Ick 2 is coming out within a couple of years there, and we're going to get a scene with Hank or one of the other characters flashing back, going to a concert that they, had these great memories for. Now, you guys get to go and get anybody you want to show up here for this concert scene. Who is showing up there that Hank is going to this concert for? I know you mentioned the Nickelback earlier as a motif originally, but is there anybody else who would end up in this concert scene that Hank's going to go and see if we get like an Ick 2? Who will you be looking for?
I'll go with one of my earliest concert experiences, which is the Counting Crows,
Okay.
because Adam, what I
God.
forget the lead singer's name with the
Yeah.
dreadlocks.
Uh-huh.
There's just so much humor that we could do with a pasty white guy with dreadlocks.
Yep. Yep. Is Hank the kind of
um,
guy who would like call him out, like have something to say about him at that point in his life now, you
oh
think?
no, not at
Okay,
all.
okay. All right, that's what we're talking about then. So Hank's one of the good ones then.
but
Hank's one of the
but
good
in
ones.
in the present day of Ick, uh, uh, yeah, there's a lot of humor about like white guys wearing dreadlocks. And how unacceptable
Yes.
that is.
Okay, so it does feed in a bit there with it. Okay.
Yeah.
This has been absolutely fantastic to have you on here, Sam. I am stoked for this film, whether it be just the tongue-in-cheek references back to 2000, that amazing soundtrack, the homages to these fantastic creature features that we all grew up on. This looks like a certified winner, and right now, all the talk is nothing but good here on it. Folks, again, you can go and catch Ick for yourself if you're in New York or LA on July 24th. For everybody else, it's going to hit Fathom Events on July 27th, 28th, and 29th. Tickets are available now. Please pick that up. Sam, thank you so much again for joining us here tonight. And do you have anything else you'd like to plug?
Um, I guess I'll plug the two Netflix shows I've worked on. I was one of the showrunners of Guardians of Justice on Netflix, which is a truly bizarre live action animation hybrid version of the Justice League, and then Captain Laserhawk, which is an anime adaptation of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that too. Yes. Yes.
Both very, very bizarre things, but if you're into weird shit, check out Guardians of Justice.
Appreciate you guys tuning in again for this interview with Sam Laskey. Sam, thank you so much again for joining me here on the show. Again, folks, you can get your tickets for Ick right now, which opens everywhere through Fathom Events on July 27th. But if you're in New York or LA, you can get tickets for that earlier. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, folks. You can check me out on all of my horror content I have coming out for you here on my channel. Best way to do that is go to linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to be access to the YouTube page for the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio only versions of the show, my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings throughout the year, my TikTok page for short horror content including movie news, movie premieres, and movie reviews, to my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page where you can get a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, y'all. Got a lot of great stuff coming up for y'all this week, including reviews for the season premiere of Dexter Resurrection, The Ritual, Marshmallow, and folks, don't forget to catch my review of Ick coming out on July 28th. That's going to do it for me here tonight, though, y'all. I appreciate you tuning in. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.